Welcome to Ask the Expert with noted radio host Steve Sleeper. Each week, Steve interviews entrepreneurs and professionals and shares their intriguing stories of success and service. Now, here's radio veteran Steve Sleeper.
Our guest today is Lance Stevens. He's a personal injury attorney with the law firm of Stevens and Ward in Jackson, Mississippi. Lance, how you doing today?
Hey, everything's good, man.
Hey, tell me about yourself and your firm.
Well, my partner and I have been together since about 1991, and we are a relatively small, medium-sized firm that has handled nothing but personal injury claims since our origin, and have had a great deal of success. We're blessed in that respect and hope to keep doing the same for years to come.
Okay, let's say I've been in an accident. Why do I need an attorney? Won't the insurance company take care of me?
Well, they certainly want to lead you to believe that. And in that respect, they are a shark circling you in the water trying to tell you that they're a porpoise. They are not your friend. It is that person's goal who is talking to you to minimize the amount that they pay you. It's also important to know that when you are without an attorney, you do not have an expert, and you are negotiating against an expert, and you really have no chits in your favor. You cannot posture. You do not have the leverage that you have when you have an attorney on your side. With an attorney on your side, you know that the conversations that you're having with the insurance companies are coming from an expert and are coming from someone who can cost that company a lot of money if they do not deal with you in good faith. And in our experience, insurance companies deal with injured victims far more fairly and, for lack of a better term, lucratively. And I don't mean to say that any injury is necessarily worth the money you end up getting, but certainly the return in our experience has been much higher for an injured victim when they're represented by a good lawyer than when they are represented by no lawyer. And I would go beyond that and say that when you are represented by a good lawyer, you're in a far better situation than when you are represented by someone who is not a good lawyer.
What should we look for in a personal injury attorney?
Well, in the internet days, I would say that victims of injuries have such a great advantage compared to when I began, because you actually can research someone's background. You can go to their website, look at their resume. Anybody's resume can look very good, but there's some key things you need to look for. Look for results. Look and see if the individuals have appealed cases to the Court of Appeals, to the Supreme Court. That's indicative of someone who puts the pedal to the metal, someone who, when the insurance company is dealing with your lawyer, they know, wow, this guy will take me to the mat. I better be fair. We need to settle this case. You also look for key associations. Is the individual a member of the National Trial Lawyers Association? Are they a member of the State Trial Lawyers Association? Have they been recognized? And again, awards are a little bit misleading sometimes, but where you have people who have achieved lifetime awards for their body of work, it just does you a greater justice to talk to that person and find out whether they best suit your needs than someone who simply runs a whole lot of advertisements on television. Those individuals, if they are generating an extraordinary number of clients, are simply running people through like cattle. They can get half of what a claim is worth or a third of what a claim is worth, and it doesn't matter because they have the next cow lined up in line, and they can get a third of what that person's claim is worth. And before you know it, the lawyer's made a whole lot of money, and there should be a whole lot of unsatisfied clients out there as a result.
What's the cost?
Well, you really have a freedom of contract here. You can try to negotiate with a lawyer as to what the contingent fee would be, and most injured victims want a contingent fee, which means that you're going to charge a percentage of what they get if you get them something. But if for some reason, and this can even happen in a very clear liability situation, there are circumstances where the lawyer cannot recover anything for you, you don't owe them anything, even including the expenses that they put in, which could be substantial. I would say that in the state of Mississippi, most lawyers who are good, who know what they're doing, are charging 1/3 of the recovery before a lawsuit is filed, 40% of that recovery if a lawsuit is filed, because there's additional human and financial resources that have to be invested when you get to that point. But Everybody's a little different. I know some lawyers that charge 40% from the beginning. One of my great mentors charged 50% because he felt like he was just the best that ever existed. And no matter how arrogant I am, I don't ever have that belief. And I think that most of the individuals that I know of who are members of trial lawyers associations who are doing good quality work are charging something like that. Now, I will tell you that when your claim does not involve an auto accident, things can change drastically. A workers' comp claim has a statutory fee of 25% before there's any appeal, 1/3 if there is an appeal. Products liability and malpractice litigation is extraordinarily expensive, burns many human resources, and most lawyers or law firms, including ours, have an escalated fee when you're going to have to take on something that is that laborious and that expensive. But again, the fees can change from law firm to law firm. I would offer this caveat: be afraid of the guy who charges an amount that does not seem like enough. It probably means that they will sell you short, or they don't understand the economics of such a claim. If you have one of these very expensive claims and you have a lawyer who will not invest substantial money in it, you are going to get hammered.
I've heard people tell this story before. They were injured either in a car accident or on the job, and they felt fine until the next day, and then they were in quite a bit of pain. And I'm guessing maybe they weren't. Maybe they weren't thinking that clearly at the time of the accident. Is there stuff we should know in advance?
Yeah, Steve, I got to tell you, sometimes somebody can be thinking very clearly, and in fact, they simply do not hurt at the accident scene. For anybody who's a member of a gym, if you have a really, really tough workout one day, you realize that you feel great. You're exhilarated afterwards. You've got adrenaline going. You're feeling very healthy. It's that next day when you wake up that you realize that you've overexerted yourself. And the same thing happens when you strain muscles, ligaments, or even have disc issues after an accident. You don't feel it until 2, even 3 days later. Now, I will tell you, if there's a very large gap, weeks before you go to seek medical treatment, you're going to have some questions that are going to be raised. It's going to be tougher for your doctors to give an opinion to say that whatever your symptoms are related to an accident weeks before where you sought no medical treatment. But you do bring up a very, very important issue having to do with work injuries. If you are injured at work, it is very important that you bring it to the attention of your supervisor or even a coworker, just to let them know, wow, this happened to me. I'm feeling a little stiff. I'm a little worried I'm going to hurt tomorrow. But you know what? I'm going to work through this, because that's what most good workers do, is although they may have been tweaked on the job, they're going to see if they can work through it. Now, sometimes they're penalized, and people say, or the employer, insurance carrier will say, you say you were injured, but yet you worked the next 2 days full time. We can deal with that. The Workers' Comp Commission actually thinks highly of people who are doing their best to report to work, do all of their duties, despite the fact that they may have some limitations. But it is very important that someone knows that that injury happened, so that you have that support when the time comes and your injury may actually be far more severe than you ever anticipated.
What's workers' comp?
Workers' comp is a product of what we call the Great Bargain. Mississippi was actually the last state in the United States to adopt a workers' comp system. It is one where if you were injured at work, regardless of fault, whether it's your fault, your employer's fault, or a third party's fault, you have some coverage. That includes all of the medical care that is related to the injury and some limited lost wage payments, which you may be entitled to while you're kept off of work. And then if you have some permanent disability, some limitations in your ability to do the particular task of a job or to earn the same amount of money that you could before, there can be an award for your permanent disability, which a qualified workers' comp lawyer can become very, very important in.
Anything else we should know?
Well, just be smart. Just be smart and know that most lawyers, like my firm, will take a phone call and will talk to you about your situation at no charge. And if you have questions, what should I do? What should I report? How should I handle this? a lawyer can give you some guidance, even if you're early on. I can't tell you how many calls where I talk to people and say, look, I would report this to my employer. I would report this to my auto insurance company. Let me know if after you do that you have a problem and I'll help you. And I never have another call because it all works out. Fortunately, these people do not have severe injuries or even moderate injuries. And that's good. I'm very happy to give these folks that kind of guidance gratis, because it's what I do. I understand the process very well. And in the event something does turn into a moderate or even severe injury, it's very helpful when that person comes to me and says, hey, Lance, I talked to you a few weeks ago. I now have a bad injury. Fortunately, I did X, Y, and Z, which you asked me to do. What do you think? And I get a big smile on my face and say, man, I'm really sorry that it turned out that you are as injured, but thank goodness you did all of these things so that we can make a claim and get you what you're entitled to under the law. No more. There's no scam in the system, but there's a system of laws that are set up in each of these scenarios that say what you're entitled to, what you're not entitled to. And if you've negotiated the difficulties, the obstacles that have been thrown in front of you by those who are actually adverse to you, then you can get full compensation when you have quality counsel.
Our guest today is Lance Stevens. He's a personal injury attorney with the law firm of Stevens and Ward in Jackson, Mississippi. Lance, how can we reach you?
Well, I'm here by phone at 601-366-7777. You can also find us on our website, which is www.stevensandward.com. You can also type in www.honestypays.com, and you will reach us. You can, in fact, find my direct email address there on our website, and I am happy to address you by either phone or email. And, Steve, thank you so much for the opportunity to discuss these issues with you. They really are important.
Thanks for listening to Ask the Expert with Steve Sleeper. Join us next time as entrepreneurs and professionals share their intriguing stories of success and service.